The sensory register and perceptual process. Let's start with perception. I want you to look across the room right now and notice the objects you see. Maybe if you are looking out a window, you see some trees, a car, a person walking, or a group of children playing. What you just done is cognitive speaking, which is an amazing achievement. Here you have taken sensory input and interpreted it meaningfully in a process known as perception. In other words, you have perceived patterns, objects, people, and possibly events in your world. Look at these two pictures and you can figure out the way the people see or perceive one particular thing in different ways. Look at the picture right now, in which you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually 6 persons trying to describe the things that they touch blindfoldedly. The man on the top of the elephant thinks that he is holding a fan, but in reality he is touching the ear of the elephant. The other one holds the tusk and thinks that it is a spear. The other one holds the trunk and says it's a snake. And other people feel that they are holding a tree or a wall or a rope. The central problem of perception is explaining how we attach meaning to sensory information we receive. How about this cat? Is it rotating to the right or to the left? Critical for our present purpose is the realization that the enrichment of sensory information takes time. Some real-time elapses between reception of sensory information and the interpretation of that information. If this point is understood, the function of the sensory register is easily grasped. Sensory information from the environment constantly bombard our body sense organs for seeing, tasting, and smelling. The sensory register is a memory system designed to store a record of the information received by the receptor cells. Let me ask you a simple question. What is this in this picture? Do you think it's an apple? No. Then what do you think it might be? In fact, it's a mango. Then what makes you think so? Because we have seen a mango before and the images of mangoes are stored in your iconic memory, which is related to your eyes. Another example. If I give you a piece of slime for the first time in your hand, you may feel disgust and you may say, what the hell is it? And you may put it down because you don't have the memory of touching the slime before. So it's a new experience for you. After a couple of days or months, if you touch the same thing, the slime, you may understand that it's a slime because of the sensory register. The receptor cells are the specialized cells of the sense organs of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin, which respond to physical energy from the environment. So, these are the sensory organs in our body. And there are 5 types of memories related to each sense organ. In the case of eye, the retina of the eye have receptor cells for the light stimulus, the rods and cones. Firing of the receptor cells begins the psychological process of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and feeling. Once these receptor cells have been activated, the record of this activation is stored on the sensory register. The stored record is known as the sensory trace. Perception thus begins with the activation of sensory receptors, and this pattern of activity is stored in a memory system, the sensory register. Why do we need to store the sensory trace? The sensory register serves a very specific function. The receptor cells of sense organs receive the information in the form of physical energy. It takes time to translate this to a meaningful form. Thus, we need a way of maintaining this information until meaning can be applied. What are the functions of sensory register? Processing the sensory information for meaning, adding information to the sensory pattern is not accomplished immediately. We need a holding bin for the sensory information until the interpretation process is over. This is the function of sensory register. And what are the characteristics of the sensory register? The first one is it's vertical. First, the information is stored in a vertical form. This simply means that the information stored should accurately reflect what happened at the sensory receptors. Since the information has no meaning at this stage, the sensory trace is said to be pre-categorical. Actually, pre-categorical means that the physical energy and corresponding receptor activity have not been categorized and further processing is necessary to determine the meaning. And the second one is relatively large. The second important characteristic is that the sensory register needs to be relatively large, at least large enough to store all of the information impinging on the sensory receptor. And third one is brief time. The third important characteristic is that the information must remain on the sensory register for a brief time. Since a sensory register stores all information from the sensory receptors and the receptors are continuously receiving information, the sensory register must be cleared quickly to avoid superimposing information from two exposures. The next one is auditory sensory register. Auditory, which is related to our ears. The sensory register is also known as a sensory memory, and its function is to maintain or hold information. The need for such a memory is register in audition is even more acute than in vision. Auditory sensory memory is also known as echoic memory. Audition generally requires the integration of information over time. Modality effect. In an attempt to study further the characteristics of auditory sensory memory, same researchers have taken advantage of a memory phenomenon known as modality effect. The modality effect refers to the higher level of recall of the last few items of a list when presentation is auditory rather than visual. For example, participants may be given a list of 9 words presented one at a time. One group of participants sees the words and a second group of participants hears the words. The people who hear the words recall the last 2 or 3 words at a higher level than the people who see the words. The suffix effect. Explanations of the modality effect as the operation of auditory sensory memory have been strengthened by another discovery known as the suffix effect. Suppose the 9-word list is followed by another word which the participants have been told signifies the end of the list. The word can be any non-list word, and the circumstances the last word of the list itself is remembered more poorly than in the case where the subject simply hears the 9-word list. This result is a suffix effect, and redundant last word is the suffix. So that's all for today, and if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and that's all. Thank you so much.